next time that I meet you, you'll be taller than before.
I'm Baker McNamara with Vibrance. I'm here with Shravya, a musician who recently released an EP. So, Shravya, tell me a little bit about your singing journey, when you first started singing, all of that.
Okay. So I've always been super into music.
Hmm.
Ever since I was little, I was always singing, messing around with the piano. But I
Hmm.
started getting actually trained when I was 10. So I was trained in Western classical music and I learned for about 5 years. And during those 5 years, I kind of transitioned from learning solo stuff and
Hmm.
kind of just building on my foundation of singing. And then I started getting into competitions and group choirs and more
Hmm.
performance-based stuff.
And with the competitions, what made you transition into doing competitions?
So, I well, okay, so when I started doing solo stuff, the main purpose of that was just to get my foundations down. So I wanted to
Hmm.
broaden my range and I wanted to get better control of my voice. And so once
Hmm.
I started doing that, I kind of wanted to steer away from just doing Western classical, and I wanted to get more into ballads, R&B,
Hmm.
modern pop. That's more of the
Hmm.
stuff that I listen to and I like
Hmm.
singing. And so getting into competitions and doing more performances, I was able to do more of the stuff that
Yeah.
I wanted to do, as well as perform stuff in the Western classical field.
And how would you describe your music now that you're releasing?
Um, I would say it's pretty chill. I don't know exactly how to describe it, but um, the feel of the song is kind of just how I feel, because
Hmm.
depending on what I write, it
Hmm.
depends on whether I'm writing in a happy mood or a sad
Yeah.
mood, like those kinds of things. But mainly my
Mhm.
music is pretty chill. Yeah.
And you've always known that you wanted to go into pursue singing ever since you were little?
Yeah, yeah. So, music was always there in my life, but I think when I started getting more into singing and I started getting into more performances and really submerging myself into the singing field, I started realizing how into it I was.
Mhm.
Everyone has their outlets and their things that they do to kind of just like relieve their stress. So for
Mhm.
some people it's running, some people it's reading, some people it's journaling. For me, it's
Mhm.
singing. And so like I'm like a super emotional person. So like let's say I have like a super stressful day or like a super happy day or just
Mhm.
experience like a small moment where I'm like, ooh, I could write something about that.
Mhm.
I kind of just write down what I was experiencing, why I was experiencing that,
Mhm.
and the whole story behind that emotion that I was
Mhm.
experiencing.
And what's your favorite part of the creative process within music and singing and writing?
Um, I think the the coolest part is kind of like fitting the puzzle pieces together.
Mhm.
So, the way that I write my music is I'm always recording everything. So I will hum something while I'm like working on
Yeah.
something or getting my laundry or something like that,
Mhm.
and I'll be like, "Oh, that's a really good tune," and I'll record it. And so that's one component of the song. And
Mhm.
then I'll take that tune and I'll take that melody that I think is super interesting and then I'll play it on the piano. I'll mess around with the piano, maybe the guitar, and figure out a chord progression that complements that, right? Because I
Mhm.
think the thing that makes the song really good is the lyrics, the music, and the melody all being able to complement one another. And
Mhm.
so once I figure out the music, I will go through and figure out like so you know how I said I write stuff before about stuff that I
Yeah.
experience.
Mhm.
I can go through those different things that I've experienced, and I can be like, oh, which
Mhm.
one matches the vibe of this song the best?
Mhm.
Because
Yeah.
so like whenever you listen to music, you know how people have their sad playlists, happy
Mhm.
playlists, and staring at the ceiling at 4 a.m. playlist, all those kinds of things.
Mhm.
It's like a vibe, it's a feeling that they experience. And so
Yeah.
when I write my music, I want to make sure that every component of my song fully delivers that emotion that I want people to experience.
Yeah, that's awesome. I totally understand where you're coming from with that. And I really, really love when you were talking about how like you'll be humming and you'll record the little hum that you're doing. I think that's so
Yeah.
cool and so natural. Um, and then who do you look to for inspiration in songwriting and in production?
Um, so like in terms of like inspiration, is it like do you want me to like
Actual musicians, yeah, like
okay,
actual
okay.
musicians.
So I some of my favorite artists are Alina Baraz and Ariana Grande. Um,
Mhm,
Alina Baraz specifically because I love
mhm.
the feel of her music. Her
Yeah.
music kind of takes you into a different dimension. I don't know if you've ever heard
Yeah,
any.
I do. It's, like, very funky and
Yeah,
chill, yeah.
it's like, super like out of this world. So like whenever
Mhm.
I'm listening to it, it's like a whole different dimension.
Yeah, it's just, like, intoxicating, her music, like,
Exactly.
it fills your ears.
Yeah, exactly. So like I want that to be the kind of stuff that I
Mhm,
write. And so just solely looking at music, I think that um I try to emulate the style that Alina Baraz does,
mhm,
and I look to her for inspiration in terms of my music and the way that I
mhm,
deliver my songs.
mhm.
Ariana Grande specifically, her range and her um ability to control her voice is
Yeah, her voice control, her vocals, like,
oh my god.
just, like,
It's
raw talent.
exactly, it's insane, and being able to control your voice like that and learning to
Mhm,
control your voice like that is
mhm,
crazy, especially
mhm,
seeing her from, like, when she was in Victorious to now and how much she's
mhm.
grown,
Yeah, her
and
progression.
exactly, it's crazy seeing someone grow like that, and I wanna experience that kind of growth, not necessarily to that, um, intensity, because every
Yeah,
voice is different, but, I wanna see that growth in myself, and I wanna feel
mhm,
proud of
yeah,
that growth that I do see
mhm.
myself,
That's
yeah.
awesome, yeah. And then what's your favorite part about being a musician?
Um, I think my favorite part is definitely just being able to, um well, there are a couple different things. So,
Mhm,
um, I listen to music a lot,
mhm,
and, I feel like a lot of people do, just because it's, like, fun to listen to music, and being a musician, it's really nice knowing that, like, if I wanna learn a song, I can learn it super easily.
mhm,
Um, so, like, if I'm listening to a song and I really like the tune or I wanna learn it, it's super easy for me to pick it up on the piano or, strum, like, the chords on the
mhm,
guitar and learn it myself because then, it's just a different way for me to experience that music.
mhm,
Um, and I think another thing that I've learned to appreciate ever since I started writing music and releasing music is, seeing people relate to my music. So, up until well, before quarantine, I released music then too,
mhm,
but quarantine was something that really forced me to write to my full capacity. And I started seeing a lot more, traction on my music and on my
mhm,
page since quarantine started, and, specifically when Lavender Kisses came out, which was one of the first songs that I released during quarantine, um, I wasn't just getting, like, those silly, like I mean, those are all super valuable, like,
mhm,
every comment that I get, every word of encouragement that I get is super valuable to me, but, like, when people tell me, "Oh, you're so amazing," or "You're so talented," um, you hear it so much and you hear so many people say it to so many other people, it starts
mhm,
to lose meaning.
mhm,
So when I did release music, people were like, "Oh, it's so good. I loved listening to your song, and I love the lyrics, and I love the music, and I listen to it all the time." And that made me feel good.
yeah,
But, when I got that traction for Lavender Kisses,
mhm,
people that I didn't even know started messaging me, and they were telling me, "Oh, when I listened to your song, this is exactly what I pictured in my head." Like, I had
mhm.
messages, like, paragraphs long telling me, "Oh, this is what I experienced. I imagined this, this, and this in my head,"
That's
and
awesome.
exactly, it's like
That's exactly what you want as a
yeah,
musician, I feel like.
so when I when I listen to my music or when I listen to other people's music, the thing that I love so much about it is being able to relate to their
Mhm,
voice, their thoughts, their experiences on my own level.
mhm,
And to think that people are doing that same thing with my music and my voice is so
mhm,
heartwarming and so, like, incredible to think about because I never even though, like, where I'm at is such a small stage, right? And there's so much room for improvement,
mhm,
where I'm at, I'm starting to realize that my voice is worth something, right? And singing has always been one of those things that I didn't need validation from other people. Like my own progress and my own seeing my own results was always something that was enough for me to keep going.
mhm,
But now seeing people actually connect to my work and connect to my lyrics, and like when people say, have you ever heard when people say, "Oh, that song hits different," or like this
Yeah.
lyric hits different? When people say that about my music, I'm like, what? Like
Yeah.
people like are actually experiencing those kinds of things with my
Mhm.
music. That it's like it's so cool to think about.
Yeah. And what do you think it is about quarantine that forced you to actually sit down and focus on your writing and your music?
So as a senior, I was focusing a lot on college apps and finishing
Mhm.
up our internships or doing those last minute things to get colleges to notice me, all those kinds of stuff.
Mhm.
Um, and then when quarantine started, I mean, everyone was quarantined. I was stuck in my room, stuck in my house, and there wasn't much I could do except for the stuff that I kind of put on the shelf.
Mhm.
So I was so busy with school, even though I knew I loved music so much, I didn't make enough time for it, which
Yeah.
is my fault. But quarantine gave me the opportunity to kind of like dust that off and
Mhm.
um, kind of really sit down and write good quality music. And
And your
yeah,
latest EP, was that written through quarantine or
yeah. Um,
wow.
I mean, okay, so when I first started writing music in quarantine, that's when it like actually started getting more traction, and because of that, I met new people through
Mhm.
different social media platforms, and I got to collaborate with this super talented guy from North Carolina, and
Mhm.
so that's where the EP started. I started working with him, and so it was a collaborative project. But the EP, we started working on it in the beginning of May, and
Mhm.
then we released it in July.
And you just connected with the man through social media?
Yeah.
Okay, that's awesome. And what is your favorite or what is the recording process like for you? Like when you're recording a song and producing it, like what was that like to be working with him on the
Mhm.
song?
So, before I started working with him, just in general, my recording process, it's
Mhm.
kind of really random. Um, so I'm really good at, well, I mean, to an extent. If I had to choose which one I was better at, music production or the songwriting, it's definitely the songwriting.
Mhm.
Um, it's really easy for me to write down the lyrics and figure out the bass music,
Mhm.
but the music production, like editing, the vocals, and recording tracks and stuff, it's something that I'm still learning a lot about. So that in that sense, it was kind of tough learning how to record,
Mhm.
uh, especially because I wanted it to be good quality if I was putting it out there,
Mhm.
and so the difference between doing it myself and then working with this guy from North Carolina. He's
Mhm.
really good at music production, and he was the one that produced the songs. And not only was I able to collaborate with him, but I was
Mhm.
able to learn a lot about music production through working with him,
Mhm.
because I would see how he would mix the tracks that I sent
Mhm.
him or mix the tracks that he was working on. So that way I've grown a lot in terms of my recording, but individually my recording before I started working with him was pretty random and rocky, but I'm still
Mhm.
in the process of learning everything.
Mhm. And with your music, what do you find keeps you inspired to continue making music and writing and all that?
So I kind of mentioned this before, but there are two
Mhm.
different aspects to it. So um, music again is one of those things where I don't need other people's like validation in order to keep moving on.
Mhm.
It's one of the few things that I can just look at my work and I can be like, oh, I see this progress. So
Mhm.
compared to music that I like, the first song that I released in 2018,
Mhm.
compared to the latest release that I released by myself, Next Time, I
Mhm.
can see like the growth in my lyricism and the growth in my like the style of music and the way that I deliver my lyrics and the way that
Mhm.
I deliver my music. And um even though I'm still not good at music production, seeing that growth in um my learning ability to mix and record, um that's one thing that does keep me inspired because it proves to me that I am going somewhere, and I if I continue to go to this path,
Mhm.
I can do something more with my music, which is
Mhm.
always what I wanted to do.
Mhm.
Um, and then I think the other thing is definitely like recently getting um, listening to people's reactions to my music and
Mhm.
seeing people actually genuinely connect to my music and gain something from my music and not just think of it as just like another song. Because
Mhm.
originally when I started writing music and releasing music, I always had my friends to support me, and
Mhm.
like my family was supporting me, and close people, they were all
Yeah.
supporting. But it's different getting a compliment from,
Mhm.
like, a family or a friend and then getting a compliment
Yeah.
from a total stranger.
Yeah, because it's coming from someone who has no connection to you, and they
Exactly.
really just wanted to reach out to you for
Yeah.
that one specific.
Yeah.
And what's your favorite song that you've worked on? Or
Wait, you just froze a little bit.
sorry, what's your favorite song that you perform or have written or worked on of
Um,
your own?
so I think probably my favorite song was "Lavender Kisses," just because that was kind of like the turning point in terms of the maturity of the way that I wrote my songs.
Mhm.
Um, I've always, like, when I write my music, it always comes from my heart. It always comes from, like, a certain emotion or something that I'm experiencing. But Lavender Kisses was really different in the sense that there was a reason that I did everything. So there was a reason that I had like a really monotonous, basic music. I had like really basic and monotonous music for the verses, and then super um, spacey, like Alina Baraz type music
Yeah. Mhm.
for the choruses. Um, and it's because I wanted people to experience the contrast between the two.
Mhm.
Okay, so basically the reason behind Lavender Kisses was kind of I wrote it because it was the start of quarantine, and it was about how I wanted something to kind of like excite my life. And like the idea of just being stuck in quarantine and not being able to do anything, and I just needed something to excite my life, make it more exciting.
Mhm.
And so the verses in the song are about like my day-to-day like routine, everything that I do every day, and it's really boring, it's really plain. And then the chorus focuses on what exactly I want to happen. So like the idea of lavender kisses, it's like this out of body experience,
Mhm.
and I want something like that to energize
Mhm.
me, something like that to spice up my life. And
Mhm.
so the contrast that I had between the music in the verse and the music in the chorus was something that I've never done before in any of my other music. And the fact that I thought about even like doing that, and
Mhm.
the taking the time to really piece together those um, different parts of the song and attaching value to every single thing that I did in that song, it was
Mhm.
something that I'd never done before. Like it was always usually um, I'll write about something, uh, the lyrics make me feel a certain way, and I'm writing music to complement that. But Lavender Kisses was the first song where I genuinely thought about both lyrics and music and how well they would complement each other
Mhm.
and turn into a full blown experience for the
Yeah.
listener. Yeah.
Alrighty. And last question. What's next for you? Are you working on anything right now? Do you have any future projects planned? All
Um,
that jazz.
so yeah, I have a bunch of different stuff in the works right now. Again, because of social media and everyone being stuck in quarantine, I've
Mhm.
made a lot of friends through social media, and I made a lot of artist friends. So I'm collaborating with a lot of different people that I never would have collaborated
Mhm.
with before. And so I'm working on songs with a bunch of different people, and then I'm working on an EP by myself. And this specific EP is kind of updating old lyrics that I had. So I'm taking lyrics that I wrote a couple years ago or a couple months ago that I never knew what to do with,
Mhm.
just kind of like sprucing them up, and yeah, just creating an EP on my own because it's never something that I've done. I've never released an EP just by myself. So yeah,
Alrighty, that sounds great.
yeah.
Thank you so much for talking with me, Shravya. Do you want to tell people where they can find you on
Huh?
social media? Where
Oh,
people can find you on social media?
um, so my Instagram is Shravya_Kamaraju, and that's basically the main thing that I have. And then TikTok is Shravya Cam. So yeah, that's basically it.
So Shravya, can you sing a little bit for us so the audience can hear?
Yeah, definitely. So I have a song that I've been working on for my new EP. I don't know what it's called yet, but I like I have the bare bones for the song, so I'll just play like the first verse.
Awesome.
Oh, and I'm not an expert at guitar whatsoever. So
No judgment, no judgment.
Hooked on a machine, all that I feel never feels real. Say all that I needed to say, words that I see that mean nothing to me. Spewing out some phrases that make me feel way less alone. Lying to the public that I am smarter than they know. Ooh, give me a piece of your heart. I wanna feel less like a robot. Ooh, my reflection is riddled with guilt. It's my conscience inside that I've killed. That's it. Thank you.
Wow, that was so good, actually. I can't believe you don't know how to play the guitar because you blew me away. Your voice is phenomenal. Seriously, that was so good.
Thank you so much.
I'm so excited to hear your future EP.
Thank you. It was really nice talking to you.
Yeah, it was a pleasure.
Yeah.
Next time that I meet you, you'll be taller than before. So